Name is Omar, and for most of my life, I was what you'd call a skeptic. Ghosts, spirits, jinn. I thought they were just stories our grandparents told us to keep us from staying out too late. I was a practical guy, a programmer. My world was one of logic, code, and caffeine. Anything that couldn't be explained by science was, in my mind, just noise. That all changed when I moved into the old apartment on Elm Street. It was one of those beautiful, pre-war buildings with high ceilings and original hardwood floors. A steal for the price, I thought. The landlord, a sweet old lady named Mrs. Gable, did mention it had been empty for a while. It has a bit of character, she'd said with a wink. I just thought she meant the creaky floors. I had no idea the character she was talking about had been a resident for centuries. The first week was fine, normal moving in chaos. Boxes everywhere, the smell of fresh paint. Then the weirdness started, small things at first. My keys would vanish from the hook by the door, only to reappear in the fridge. The TV would switch channels on its own, always to a static-filled screen. I blamed faulty wiring and my own forgetfulness. I was working long hours, after all. Stress does strange things to the mind, but then it escalated. One night, I was coding, deep in the zone, when I felt a sudden, bone-chilling cold wash over me. The air grew thick, heavy. I could hear a faint whisper, like wind rustling through dry leaves, but there was no wind. The words were in a language I didn't understand, guttural and ancient. My heart hammered against my ribs. I tried to dismiss it, telling myself I was overtired. The next day, my favorite mug, a gift from my sister, flew off the counter and shattered against the wall. It didn't just fall, it was thrown. There was force behind it. That's when the skepticism started to crack. I couldn't explain this away with logic. This wasn't faulty wiring, this was personal. The attacks grew more intense. I'd wake up with scratches on my arms. The whispers turned into hisses that seemed to come from right behind my ear. I started having nightmares, vivid and terrifying, of a shadowy figure with burning eyes, watching me from the corner of my room. My work suffered, I couldn't focus, I lost weight. My friends told me I looked like a ghost. The irony was not lost on me. I was being haunted, tormented. By what, I still wasn't sure, but it felt malevolent. It wanted me out, or worse. Desperate, I confided in my friend, Kareem. His grandmother was known in the community for her knowledge of the unseen world. I expected him to laugh at me. He didn't. He listened intently, his expression growing more serious with every word. He told me, "Omar, this sounds like a jinn, a territorial one. You've moved into its space, and it's not happy." He suggested I see his grandmother. At this point, I was willing to try anything. The logical programmer in me was screaming, but the terrified man who was living in a nightmare was in charge. Karim's grandmother, a kind woman with eyes that seemed to see right through you, gave me a set of instructions. It wasn't about an exorcism or some dramatic confrontation, it was about respect and faith. She told me to clean my apartment thoroughly, to play recitations of the Quran, especially certain verses for protection, and most importantly, to pray, to establish my own spiritual presence in the home. "You are not fighting it with anger," she said. "You are protecting yourself with light." So I did it. I spent an entire weekend cleaning every corner of that apartment. I played the Quran on a loop, its beautiful, calming recitation filling the rooms that had once been filled with hisses and whispers. And I prayed, not just the motions, but with a sincerity I hadn't felt in years. I was reclaiming my space, not just physically, but spiritually. At first, the resistance was fierce. The lights flickered violently, doors slammed shut. A cold, furious energy pulsed through the apartment. It was like a final, desperate tantrum, but I held firm. I kept praying, my voice shaking at first, then growing stronger. And slowly, gradually, the activity began to subside. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, the cold spots vanished. For the first time in months, my apartment felt like a home. It felt peaceful. I thought that was the end of it. I thought I had won the battle and the jinn had moved on. I was wrong. The story wasn't over. This is where it gets truly strange. About a month later, I was walking home late from work. It was a cold winter night, the streets slick with black ice. I was on the phone with my sister, not really paying attention to where I was going. I stepped off the curb to cross a side street, and that's when I heard it. Not the whisper from the apartment, but a clear, sharp shout in my mind, a single word, stop. It was so forceful, so commanding, that my body reacted before my brain did. I froze mid-stride. A split second later, a car with its headlights off came screeching around a corner, running a red light. It flew past exactly where I would have been. It was so close I felt the gust of wind as it passed. It would have hit me, there's no doubt in my mind. I stood there, trembling, my phone dropped on the pavement. My heart was pounding, but this time, it wasn't from fear, it was from shock. And a profound, overwhelming sense of something. I knew, with a certainty that defied all logic, who had shouted that warning. The voice was the same one that had tormented me, the same presence that had thrown my mug and given me nightmares. But this time, it had saved my life. Why? I've spent countless hours thinking about that. Did my prayers and the recitation of the Quran change it? Did showing respect instead of fear earn its respect in return? Karim's grandmother had a theory. She said that not all jinn are inherently evil, just as not all humans are. Some are mischievous, some are territorial, and some, perhaps, can be influenced by the spiritual energy around them. She believed that by filling the apartment with faith and positive energy, I hadn't just driven it away. I had changed the dynamic. I had established a boundary based on respect, not conflict. And maybe, just maybe, this jinn, who had lived in that space for who knows how long, had formed some kind of connection, a strange, unspoken truce. When it saw me in mortal danger, it acted. I still live in that apartment. It's quiet now, the whispers are gone, my keys stay where I put them. But sometimes, on a quiet night, I feel a flicker of presence. A subtle shift in the air, it's no longer menacing. It feels watchful, protective, even. I'm not a skeptic anymore. My world of pure logic has expanded to include things I can't explain with code. I learned that the world is far more complex than we think. That sometimes our greatest adversaries can become our most unlikely protectors. That conflict isn't always the answer, and that sometimes a little faith can not only move mountains, but it can also calm a restless spirit. My life was turned upside down by a jinn, but in the end, it was also saved by one. And that's a paradox I'm still trying to understand. Thanks for listening to my story. It's a strange one, I know. If you've ever had an experience you can't explain, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. And if you enjoyed this, please consider subscribing for more stories about the strange and unseen world around us. Stay safe and stay curious. Do you remember that one friend from your childhood? The one who was always there, who felt like a secret guardian angel? For Adam, that friend was real, but he wasn't an angel, he was a jinn. A powerful, ancient being of smokeless fire, bound to protect him. Their days were filled with whispered secrets and unseen wonders, a friendship forged in the space between worlds. But as Adam grew older, the magic faded, and his guardian, Qasim, disappeared, leaving only the haze of a half-forgotten dream. Years passed. Adam is now a young man, navigating the mundane challenges of ordinary life. The memories of Qasim have become just that, memories. Stories he tells himself to make his past seem more interesting. He's settled, he's normal, or so he thinks. One stormy night, the air crackles with an unnatural energy. The scent of ozone and something else, something ancient and wild, fills his apartment. And then, from the swirling shadows in the corner of his room, a familiar figure emerges. It's Qasim, but he's different. The playful light in his eyes is gone, replaced by a grim urgency. The reunion is not one of joyful reminiscence. Qasim brings a dire warning: a gateway has been breached. A malevolent entity, a shadow from the jinn world, has slipped into the human realm. This isn't just any rogue spirit. It's a creature that feeds on despair and chaos, a being that even the most powerful jinn fear. It has a taste for the mortal world, and it's leaving a trail of inexplicable tragedies in its wake. Adam is skeptical, trying to rationalize what he's seeing. Is this a stress-induced hallucination, a dream? But the cold dread that Qasim's words ignite in his heart feels all too real. Qasim explains that this shadow is drawn to places of great emotional turmoil. It finds the cracks in society, the pockets of loneliness and fear, and it widens them until everything breaks. The recent string of bizarre accidents and sudden public outbursts across the city, that's its handiwork. It's growing stronger with every soul it touches, and its ultimate goal is to shatter the veil between worlds completely, unleashing an endless night. Qasim is here not just to warn Adam, but to ask for his help. The shadow is clever. It hides within human emotions, making it nearly impossible for a jinn to track in our world. But Adam, with his human heart and his unique connection to Qasim, can sense its influence. Their old friendship is immediately put to the test. This isn't like the old days of chasing mischievous sprites in the park. This is a life-or-death mission against an invisible enemy. Adam, an ordinary guy, must now learn to see the world through Qasim's eyes, to perceive the subtle corruption the shadow leaves behind. They become a strange pair of supernatural detectives, the jinn with his ancient power and the human with his modern world intuition. Their bond is their greatest weapon, but it's also their greatest vulnerability. The shadow learns of their connection and begins to target it, twisting Adam's doubts and fears, trying to turn him against his oldest friend. Can a forgotten friendship be reforged in time to save not just their city, but the fragile balance between two worlds? The hunt has begun and the shadows are closing in. Don't forget to follow for the next part of their story. Thanks for watching.